Bees Part 2. Now the bees require water at breeding time so that they can make the honey thin for the grubs, that the tiny larvae or the insects or bees that have come out of the eggs. They are called grubs, so they can easily digest it, eat it. And a strong stock will collect as much as 1 pint a day. A strong stock here means a big group of bees will collect as much as 1 pint a day of water. Propolis is a gummy substance they collect from trees, and they use it as a cement to fill up the holes and cracks in the honeycomb, and so that it becomes secure and safe. Crevices are cracks and holes type of things which create in the hive. Now bees do not collect honey, okay, they gather a sweet liquid from the flowers, which is called nectar. The flowers, they give out or they emit this sweet liquid nectar, and it attracts bees and other insects to it. The nectar is pretty much like water and is carried home in the honey sac, which is inside the bee's body, to the hive. And during this journey home, and after being placed in the cells, much of the water is driven off. When they are taking it to the hive, they drop away a lot of water from the nectar. This process is called changing of nectar into honey as ripening. Now the honey sac of a bee holds about 1/5, only 1/5 of a drop of nectar, and it is estimated that if one bee could collect 1 pound of honey, which it cannot, it is impossible for one bee to make 1 pound of honey, it would have to fly a distance equal to twice round the globe. If the honey bee was able to collect 1 pound of honey on its own, then the distance from the flower to the hive would take her to fly twice round the globe, which is almost impossible. The poor thing cannot collect so much of honey. It only holds, its stomach can only hold, or the honey sac, 1/5 of a drop of a nectar. The pollen is gathered by the honeybees for use as food by the bees. The bees also need food to eat, so they gather pollen. It is part of a process called pollination. It becomes entangled. Entangled means it just sticks in the body hairs of the bees, gets mixed up with it, and then it is transferred from flower to flower, and this results in production of fruit and seeds, and so more flowers will grow and more nectar and pollination will occur. Pollination is the real work of honeybees, best work of the honeybees, and in the one way she helps in the production of growing of more flowers and food, such as fruit and field crops. She is responsible. So it is said that if the honeybees, God forbid, are wiped out from the planet Earth, then the human being will no longer survive. All the pollen is not required for pollination, okay. Some of it, as she flies from flower to flower, she combs it from herself, like brushes it from her body, from her legs, and packs it into the pollen basket, which she carries on her back legs. There must be very, very small things. Then on reaching the hive, it is placed in the cells, and the bees pack it down hard by hitting it with their heads. Then in the hives, she packs it in the cells so they can eat there. They punch it hard with their heads, so it sticks in the hive. The eggs from which the grubs hatch come out are very tiny. They have a yolk and a shell only. Now on the 3rd day, when the egg hatches into a grub, okay, this is fed by the workers, and on the night day, the grubs are fed by the worker bees. On the night day, this cell is sealed over with a capping of wax and pollen. On the night day, they seal the hole or the cell by wax and pollen, okay. Then what happens inside the grubs? They take a wonderful change inside the cell. The larva, it turns into a perfect insect because it is taking pollen as food and everything inside the cell. Then it bites away its way out through the wax capping from the cell. Now, two sorts of eggs are laid by the queen. One is not fertilized and it produces the drone. One egg is not fertilized. Okay, fertilization means to introduce sperms on or pollen. So one type of eggs are not fertilized, so they will become males, and the other which is fertilized, it turns out into either a worker, which is imperfect female queen, or a queen itself, according to the type of cell in which it is laid. If it is laid in the worker cell, it will be a worker queen, a worker bee, and if it is laid in some other cell, then a queen bee will emerge. And the food which is given to the grub when it is hatched, coming out from the egg. So it depends on the food and the type of cell where the eggs are being laid. If it is to produce a queen, it is laid in a queen cell. They have a proper queen cell. If they want to make a queen bee, eggs are laid in the queen bee cell, and it hangs upside down on the comb. Comb means the hive, and it looks like a peanut, while the grub which hatches from it is fed on a very rich food. The queen bee eggs are given a very rich type of very good kind of food, which is called royal jelly. Most of the cells from a comb are worker cells. The other cells are all of worker cells. Very few of them are for queen bee cells. And these cells are small, six-sided. If you have seen a honey bee hive, it is six-sided shaped hive, and these cells are used for brood rearing, means for laying eggs, and for the storage of honey. Honey is also stored here, and the eggs are also raised up here. When a grub is hatched in those cells, it is fed on a less rich food. Now, the worker bees' eggs are given a little bit lesser rich food, unlike the queen bee eggs, and it turns into a worker, because the females that are hatched in the worker bee cells are imperfect females and a very different insect from a queen. They are quite different from the queen also. The main part of a hive is the brood chamber, containing large combs. The brood chamber, where the legs are laid, they are very big combs. It is the bee's permanent home and is used for raising up the eggs and for storage of honey. Now, in the honey season, chambers containing smaller combs are called supers. If you can see here, brood chamber is made here, are placed above the brood chamber, and there the bees store honey which is to be taken out from there. Now, to prevent the queen laying eggs in the supers, a slotted metal sheet, a queen excluder, which is called a queen excluder, is placed over the brood chamber. So the queen does not lay eggs in